I actually took quotes from this book so that I can study it for my own writing. That's how much I like this book. One of my original notes in my notebook was actually just, holy fuck. Hi guys, my name is Gloria and welcome back to my channel. If you want to help me reach my 2020 goal for this channel, you can hit subscribe down below. I have an arbitrary goal of reaching 200 subscribers and I'm working to do that, so you can help me out if you like. So today I want to talk about True Crime by Samantha Kolesnik. I saw a lot about this on Twitter and stuff. It was kind of blowing up. I think I originally did ask for an arc of it, but whatever happened, I didn't get one. And once I saw reviews starting to come out, I was still interested, so I went and bought the ebook myself. And just to show you how much I actually like the book, I'm going to be ordering a physical copy very soon because I want to have it on my shelf so that I can read it again and so that I can highlight parts for my own writing, because the writing in this book is so good. It's hard to describe. I also just want to say, FYI, for trigger warnings, there are in-depth descriptions of physical and sexual abuse against minors at the beginning of the book and throughout, and it's not an easy read if those are things that you just can't handle. I completely understand, because normally I would be the same, but I did sort of push through a little bit for this book because I wanted to finish it. But if you're not comfortable with that, then maybe stay away from this book. So the basic story of True Crime is that it follows Susie and her brother Lim as they take a journey on a crime spree, murdering multiple people. That's kind of what you know from the book from the beginning. It's a look at the inner workings of the mind of someone who would go out and kill these people. Someone who at the beginning of the book is only 12 years old, and I think her brother might be about 16 or so. I don't think it's actually specified, but it's a young girl, 12 years old, murdering people with her brother. Right up my alley. So originally I was very interested in this book, but when I looked at the sort of descriptors, I did kind of think, oh god, here we go again. Normally when I get asked to review a book and it says not for the faint-hearted, I know exactly what that means, and I've actually stopped accepting those books now because I know I'm going to hate them. It almost always means it's from the perspective of a murderer who rapes and murders women and nothing bad ever happens to them, and they're equal parts downtrodden and people treat them badly, but they're also amazing and intellectual and they have sex with loads of women, they just don't like them that much. And I've read like 4 books last year, I think, like that, and it's just not interesting. But this book is not that. Normally when you see not for the faint-hearted, you're kind of like, well, if it's horror, horror isn't for the faint-hearted. We're all here for the blood and guts and violence or whatever. But this book takes into account the horrors of child abuse, the horrors of how a child who never was given a chance to process the trauma they went through, the kind of things that they think, and it's something that I've never gone through myself, but when I've heard other people speak about their experiences, what's told in this book, it felt very real. You know, it took into account the juxtaposition that a lot of abuse survivors go through, where they loved the person that was abusing them. There were good times, but there were also the bad times, and this story it really shows Susie's inner workings on these things and how difficult it is for her to just do anything, to function as a normal human being. And that was really interesting to read, and it was well written, because it could have been handled badly, but in True Crime, Samantha Kolesnik does a fantastic job of handling it really well. Writing fiction as well, you're sort of told, you're kind of pushed to try and write the story that only you can tell, and that's a very difficult thing to do because you don't want to just be writing about your own life or anything, and I don't believe that Kolesnik was doing that here. hopefully. But I feel like only a woman could have written this well. You know, a great male writer could have written a 12-year-old going and murdering people, and it would have been an interesting read. But to see it specifically from a young female character's point of view and a female writer's point of view, you really get the scope on what it's like for this character to constantly be wary of any kind of male attention whatsoever. And for the male characters in the book, she has every right to be wary of them. Most of the people she meets are dangerous, unfortunately, and it just, a lot of the things in the book, reading it as a woman, you were like, yeah, I completely believe that. That's exactly what it's like. One thing that I did want to see more of in the book is that the sexual abuse on the character Susie, it was perpetrated by her mother, and it's not unheard of, but it isn't statistically the usual. And I did kind of want her to dive a little bit deeper into maybe Susie being a lot more wary of women as well, because she knows that women can also be sexually abusive in that way. Although she goes back and she thinks about her mother in that way, she only really thinks about her mother in that way. She doesn't feel like the other women around her are as much of a threat, which could just be the character in itself. But I just, once the first chapter came in and I thought, oh, it's the mother who's the terrible person here, I thought that maybe we would get a look at that side. But it was more male-centric in the way that Susie was negatively seeing the world, and obviously there were plenty of men in the story who hurt her as well, so that wasn't it. It's not completely ridiculous or anything. I kind of did hope there would be a little bit more on that. Almost immediately, Susie kills her mother while she's in the middle of abusing her, and Lim discovers it, and in order to protect her, he takes them in the car and drives off, and they begin encountering terrible people who want to hurt them. And initially, the hurting that they do is in self-defense. You can understand it. There's also a small point where, and I thought this was interesting as well, in terms of how guilty Susie feels for the things that have happened to her, for the things that she's done. The mother was also a kidnapper, and there was a young girl who she also abused who was kept in the basement of their home, and when they left, they set the house on fire, and they didn't try and save her. It all happens quite quickly, and it doesn't go into any thoughts they had of thinking of saving her or anything, but that's another thing that she has to deal with and she has to keep in her mind when she sees missing posters around the town and everything of this young girl that they're still trying to find, and she knows what happened to her. But the first half of the book, it sort of kept in line with what I thought the book was going to be. It was very well written. It was a lot more interesting than the other books like this that I've read. But it was just a crime spree of consecutive bad things happening and being done, and I thought, oh, it's probably just going to be similar. About the halfway mark though, it did change for me, and it's what brought the book from maybe a 3.5, 4 stars right up to 5 for me, because it shows consequences for some of the actions in the book. It shows the aftermath of what Susie actually thinks about what she's done, what she thinks about her future, what she thinks about herself, and is it possible for her to actually be a good person? Is it possible for her to be like other people? Understandably, she sees some other people who've never gone through any trauma like she has as very weak, because no one's ever tested them, no one's ever hurt them the way that she's been hurt, and she recognizes that she believes she's a bad person for the things that she's done, but she also kind of thinks that they don't deserve all of the things that they just got naturally because they're weaker than her. which is an interesting take to read in the mind of such a young girl. But it's also harrowing to read the way that she thinks of herself. From the very beginning of the book, she thinks of herself as a dog because she has to obey all the commands of her mother, no matter what they are, and her mother knows that she's going to do anything she tells her to do. And even as she's going through these crimes and she's hurting other people and she's fighting back, and even as she gets a little bit older then and she's trying to think critically of these things, there are certain instances where she's put in a situation like that again and she immediately reverts back to that child in that dog mode where she does exactly what the person wants her to do, even though she knows she shouldn't, even though she knows there's a possible way out. She can't help but go back to that, and unfortunately she thinks that's just the way she is now, and it really is harrowing to hear that from the perspective of this character. And I think that's another reason that I think only a woman could have written this. And Kolesnik does such a fantastic job. There are so many, you know, when a writer writes just a sentence and to them it might just be a throwaway sentence, but if you're reading really good writing and there's one sentence that just punches you in the gut and you just have to you have to put the book down for a second and stop and think, wow. I really wish I could do that with my own writing. I'm going to study hers to see if I can try and emulate that in parts, but Kolesnik is a really great writer. I think she's a director and a screenwriter as well, so this might be her debut novel, but she obviously has experience and skills in telling stories, and she does it so well. So I think if you're looking for a novel to read for Women in Horror Month next month, you should definitely pick up true crime if this is the kind of thing that you'd be interested in. I'm going to be keeping an eye out for Kolesnik's name in the future because I'll absolutely be buying her next book. So if you've read true crime already, let me know down below what you thought of it. Were there bits that you didn't like? Were there bits that I didn't mention that you really did like? Let me know. I'd love to discuss it more with people. Or let me know if you're going to add it to your TBR for Women in Horror Month or just in general. Like and subscribe down below if you like what I'm doing here. I'll see you in the next video.